Thwack, thwack, thwack. Hammer against wood, baby! That's the sound of progress. That's the sound of a man, me, Robert freaking Bennett, making something. I'm in my garage, right? My sanctuary, my goddamn workshop where I can escape the beige hellscape they call Harmony Glen. Now, is it a little messy? Yeah, maybe. So what? It's a garage, not a freaking operating room. I got tools, I got wood, I got half-finished projects that might actually get finished someday. Or not. Who cares? It's my space. I'm paying the mortgage, I'm paying the ridiculous HOA fees, and I'll be damned if I'm gonna let some clipboard-wielding clown tell me I can't have a little sawdust on the floor. And then this guy shows up. Mr. Buzzkill, Mr. Beige Brigade himself, standing there like he's about to hand me a prison sentence, all silhouetted in the sun like some kind of angel of aesthetic death. Clipboard in hand, of course. Gotta have the clipboard. How else are you gonna document the horrifying sight of a man working in his garage? He's probably got a freaking ruler in his pocket, too, just waiting to measure the height of my grass or the angle of my, I don't know, hammer collection. This guy, he's the reason I drink. Seriously, he's the reason I need a speakeasy in my garage in the first place. Mr. Bennett? He asked, his voice as dry and lifeless as a week-old cracker. That's me, I said, setting down my hammer. Can I help you? Mr. Fussbudget, he introduced himself, with the air of a man announcing his own impending doom. Harmony Glen Homeowners Association. I sighed inwardly. This couldn't be good. What seems to be the problem, Mr. Fussbudget? Mr. Fussbudget gestured towards my open garage door, his face contorted in a grimace. This, Mr. Bennett, he said, his voice tight with barely suppressed disgust. This garage. It's in violation of community guidelines. He went on to explain the new bylaw. Homeowners are required to keep their garages neat and organized. Clutter is not permitted. Your garage door must remain closed at all times except for when entering and exiting. Violation? I repeated, feigning confusion. Of what, exactly? Of everything, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Fussbudget sputtered. It's cluttered. It's unsightly. It's a blatant disregard for the aesthetic standards of Harmony Glen. It's a garage, Mr. Fussbudget, I said, my voice laced with sarcasm. It's for storing things, and for working on projects. It's not exactly meant to be a museum display. But it's visible, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Fussbudget insisted. From the street, people can see it. Well, yeah, I said. That's kind of how garage doors work. They open, and then you can see inside. Mr. Fussbudget was unmoved. He was a drone, a rule enforcer, a man who probably color-coded his sock drawer. He informed me that I was in clear violation of the HOA's aesthetic guidelines, that my garage was lowering property values, and that I needed to remedy the situation immediately. So, what you're saying, I said, is that I have to keep my garage door closed at all times, even when I'm, using it? Precisely, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Fussbudget said, with a smug nod. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to reorganize your garage to meet the HOA's standards of neatness. I looked around my garage at the, admittedly, cluttered workbenches, the shelves overflowing with tools and supplies, the half-finished projects scattered across the floor. Yeah, I said, that's not going to happen. Mr. Fussbudget sighed, clearly exasperated by my lack of cooperation. He handed me a written warning, informed me that I would be subject to further action if I didn't comply, and retreated, looking like he needed a stiff drink and a long lie-down in a very, very organized room. The HOA meeting, held in the Harmony Glen Community Center, a building that, predictably, was as bland and uninspiring as its name suggested, was a masterclass in bureaucratic pettiness. The board members, a collection of Agnes's loyal followers, sat at a long table, looking like a panel of judges on a particularly dull reality show. And then there was Agnes Primley, the president of the Harmony Glen HOA and the self-proclaimed guardian of all things neat and orderly. She was an older woman, meticulously organized, from her perfectly coiffed hair to her immaculately polished shoes. She radiated an air of control and a deep-seated belief in the importance of rules, no matter how ridiculous. She was, in short, my nemesis. "Mr. Bennett," Agnes began, her voice sharp and accusatory, "your garage has been brought to our attention." She said garage as if it were some kind of biohazard. "My garage, Miss Primley," I corrected, trying to keep my voice calm and reasonable, "is a functional space. I use it for my hobbies, for working on projects, for storing things. It's a garage." "It's an eyesore, Mr. Bennett," Agnes declared, her voice rising in pitch. "It's cluttered. It's disorganized. It's lowering property values." "Lowering property values?" I repeated, incredulous. "It's a garage, Agnes. It's not like I'm hosting monster truck rallies in there." "It's creating a disruptive environment," she continued, ignoring my comment. "It's a fire hazard. It's attracting undesirable elements." "Undesirable elements?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "You mean tools, wood scraps, the occasional sawhorse?" "It's setting a bad example, Mr. Bennett," she insisted. "We have standards in Harmony Glen. We strive for neatness, for order, for a consistently pleasing aesthetic." "And my garage," I said, my voice laced with sarcasm, "is clearly not pleasing enough for you." I tried to reason with her. I explained that I needed to keep the garage door open sometimes for ventilation, for light, for actually using the garage. I pointed out that there were no specific rules yet against having a cluttered garage, as long as it didn't pose a safety hazard or become a public nuisance. The other board members, a collection of mostly middle-aged men and women who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few of them, I noticed, were actually glancing at their own, presumably messy, garages, as if suddenly realizing they, too, might be in violation of Agnes's unspoken rules. But Agnes? She was unmoved. She was a woman on a mission to eradicate all traces of clutter and disorganization from Harmony Glen. "The garage door," Agnes declared, slamming her gavel down with unnecessary force, "must remain closed, except when entering or exiting your vehicle. You have been warned, Mr. Bennett. Further violations will result in fines and restrictions." Restrictions? On my garage door? It was absurd. It was outrageous. It was war. I walked out of that meeting, my blood boiling, my sense of injustice reaching critical levels. Agnes Primley had declared war on my garage. And I, Robert Bennett, was not about to surrender. It was time to fight back. But not with words. With a speakeasy. The new rules arrived with the subtlety of a brick through a window. Typed in bold, underlined font on official HOA letterhead. Beige, of course. They were clearly, specifically, targeted at me and my beloved garage. "Restrictions on garage usage," the heading proclaimed. "Effective immediately. All garage doors must remain closed at all times, except for the immediate entry and exit of vehicles. No visible clutter is permitted within garages. All items must be neatly stored and organized, out of sight from the street. Any activity within a garage that creates excessive noise or disrupts the community's aesthetic is strictly prohibited. The installation must have approved garage door screening. And just for good measure, they'd added a final, particularly infuriating clause. The HOA reserves the right to inspect any garage, at any time, to ensure compliance with these regulations. They wanted me to keep it closed, at all times. It was a declaration of war, a blatant attempt to control my life, to dictate how I used my own property to turn my garage into a sterile beige box of HOA-approved nothingness. And I, Robert Bennett, was not about to stand for it. My internal monologue was a colorful mix of outrage, defiance, and a growing amusement at the sheer pettiness of it all. Visible clutter? I muttered to myself, pacing my, now officially non-compliant, garage. Excessive noise? Aesthetic standards? They're treating my garage like it's the Louvre, not a place to store tools and work on projects. I wasn't going to be told what I could and couldn't do in my own garage. I wasn't going to let Agnes Primley and her band of beige-loving bureaucrats win. I needed a plan, a strategy, a way to fight back, to reclaim my garage, to have some fun. And to do that, I needed a loophole. I, yet again, find myself reading the bylaws. My weapon of choice, as always, was the Harmony Glen HOA bylaws. That ridiculously long, incredibly detailed, and utterly soul-crushing document held the key to my victory. I knew it. I just had to find it. I spent hours poring over the pages, searching for any clause, any ambiguity, any weakness I could exploit. I focused on the sections about garage usage, home businesses, and community standards. And then I found it. It wasn't a direct loophole, not exactly, but it was an opening, a glimmer of hope, a way to reinterpret the rules. The bylaws, in their infinite wisdom, had meticulously regulated commercial activity within the community. They had rules about home businesses, about signage, about traffic flow. And this was the crucial part. They said nothing, not a single word, about private clubs, about social gatherings held inside a garage, as long as they didn't violate noise ordinances or other general rules. There was the usual vague clause about maintaining the intended use of residential spaces, but that was subjective, open to interpretation, and I suspected easily defensible. Private clubs, I muttered, a slow smile spreading across my face. Social gatherings. The seed of an idea, a gloriously absurd and wonderfully defiant idea, was starting to sprout. Operation Hidden Hooch was born. My plan was simple in its audacity. I wouldn't just fight the HOA's restrictions on my garage. I'd transform my garage. I'd turn it into something they'd never expect, something they couldn't control, something that would make Agnes Primley's perfectly organized world crumble around her. I would build a secret speakeasy. It would be a fully functional speakeasy, hidden behind the seemingly ordinary facade of my garage door. There would be a bar, stocked with my favorite beverages. There would be comfortable seating, creating a cozy, inviting atmosphere. There would be mood lighting, vintage decor, and maybe even a secret password for entry. It would be a place for me and my friends to gather, to relax, to escape the beige tyranny of Harmony Glen. And I'd argue, with a perfectly straight face, that it wasn't a business, but a private club. That it wasn't visible clutter because it was all inside the garage. That it wasn't violating any noise ordinances because we were all responsible adults who knew how to have a good time without disturbing the peace, mostly. I could already picture Agnes's reaction. The sputtering outrage, the vein throbbing in her forehead, the inevitable meltdown. It was a beautiful image. I knew it was ridiculous. I knew it was probably going to be a lot of work. But I didn't care. This wasn't just about a garage anymore. It was about freedom. It was about the right to enjoy your own property, to socialize with your friends, to have a secret speakeasy, hidden behind a perfectly ordinary garage door. My first step was finding someone to help me bring my vision to life. I needed a carpenter, a contractor, someone who was both skilled and discreet, someone who wouldn't ask too many questions, and who wouldn't rat me out to the HOA. I found him through a friend of a friend. His name was Mike, a new one, and he specialized in custom home renovations and unconventional projects. "So, let me get this straight," Mike said, looking around my currently cluttered garage. "You want to turn your garage into a speakeasy? Like a 1920s-style hidden bar?" "Exactly," I said, nodding enthusiastically. "Think. Prohibition-era charm meets suburban rebellion. Think secret entrance, hidden bar, vintage decor. Think the ultimate HOA defiance." Mike stared at me for a moment. Then a slow grin spread across his face. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," I said. "I have a situation with my HOA, and this is my solution." I briefly recounted the saga of the garage door restrictions, Agnes Primley's obsession with aesthetic standards, and my burning desire for a little bit of clandestine cocktail-fueled revenge. "Mr. Bennett," Mike said, shaking his head and chuckling, "you are my kind of client. I'm in. This is going to be the most interesting project I've worked on all year. But are you sure about this? It's a bit unconventional." "Unconventional is my specialty," I said. "And besides, it's perfectly legal. As long as we keep it discreet, and as long as we don't sell any alcohol. It's a private club, remember? Not a business." We discussed the details. The design would be crucial. The speakeasy had to be completely hidden from view when the garage door was closed. We decided on a false wall, cleverly disguised as a set of ordinary storage shelves that would swing open to reveal the secret entrance. The interior would be pure 1920s glamour. A dark wood bar, comfortable leather armchairs, vintage-style lighting, and maybe even a few framed pictures of flappers and gangsters. We'd install soundproofing to minimize any noise leakage and to avoid attracting the attention of Mr. Fuss Budget and his decibel reader. And of course, we'd need a secret password for entry. I was thinking something suitably ridiculous like Gnome's Revenge or Beige is Boring. And so construction began. It was a clandestine operation, conducted mostly at night and on weekends, with the garage door firmly closed. We worked quickly and quietly, transforming my cluttered ordinary garage into a hidden oasis of illicit fun. The false wall was built, complete with hidden hinges and a cleverly disguised latch. The bar was constructed, stocked with my favorite spirits and mixers. The seating was arranged, creating a cozy and intimate atmosphere. The lighting was installed, casting a warm, inviting glow. And the decor was added, completing the 1920s speakeasy vibe. The neighbors, of course, were curious. They'd see me coming and going with strange packages, hear muffled sounds of construction coming from my garage, and occasionally catch glimpses of something happening inside. But I'd always just smile mysteriously and say, "Just reorganizing the garage, you know how it is." My internal monologue was a constant stream of excitement and anticipation. "Take that, Agnes Primley," I'd mutter to myself as I installed a vintage cocktail shaker on the bar. "Enjoy your aesthetic standards now." I imagined her face, contorted with rage, her perfectly organized world crumbling around her. It was a beautiful thought. There was, of course, a brief visit from an HOA representative, not Agnes, thankfully. She was probably still recovering from the shock of seeing me use my garage. "Mr. Bennett," he said, peering nervously into the seemingly empty garage. "We've received some reports of unusual activity." "Unusual activity?" I repeated, feigning innocence. I'm just reorganizing, Mr. Fuss Budget, as per your request. But the noise, he stammered, and the people coming and going. Just friends, I said with a shrug, helping me organize. It's a big job, you know. Mr. Fuss Budget looked around the seemingly empty garage, his expression a mixture of confusion and suspicion. He clearly didn't believe me, but he couldn't prove anything. He mumbled something about keeping an eye on things, and retreated, looking utterly defeated. I, Robert Bennett, had once again outmaneuvered the HOA, and my secret speakeasy, my hidden haven of HOA defiance, was nearing completion. The anticipation was almost unbearable. The neighborhood was whispering, and I, for one, couldn't wait to open the hidden doors and let the good times secretly roll. The grand opening of my secret speakeasy, which I'd christened the Garage Mahal, a nod to both its location and its illicit charm, was a resounding success. My friends and neighbors, sworn to secrecy and provided with the ever-changing password, currently beige is the enemy, were thrilled with the hidden haven I'd created. The false wall, disguised as a set of ordinary storage shelves, swung open to reveal a dimly lit, cozy space filled with the sounds of jazz music and the clinking of glasses. It was a world away from the beige tyranny of Harmony Glen, a place where laughter flowed freely and HOA regulations held no sway. But of course, Agnes Primley wasn't about to let me enjoy my victory in peace. She couldn't see the speakeasy, of course. The whole point was that it was hidden, but she could sense it. Like a bloodhound sniffing out a rogue dandelion, she knew something was going on in my garage. She'd see people arriving at my house, disappearing inside the garage, and then not emerging. She'd hear muffled sounds, laughter, music, the clinking of glasses, emanating from within. But whenever she'd casually stroll by, peering through the deliberately kept closed garage door window, all she'd see was, well, a garage. A seemingly ordinary, if somewhat cluttered, garage. It was driving her crazy. "Mr. Bennett," she said, accosting me one afternoon as I was innocently checking my mailbox, "I've noticed activity at your residence. Unusual activity." "Activity?" I repeated, feigning ignorance. "What kind of activity?" "People," she said, her voice tight with suspicion. "Coming and going at all hours, and sounds. Strange sounds. Coming from your garage." "I've been working on a project, Agnes," I said with a shrug. "A rather time-consuming project. Requires a lot of collaboration." "Collaboration?" she repeated, her eyes narrowing. "With whom? And on what?" "Just a hobby, Agnes," I said vaguely. "Nothing that violates any HOA regulations, I assure you. Just some harmless fun. Keeping my mind sharp, you know." Agnes stared at me, her expression a mixture of suspicion and frustration. She clearly didn't believe me, but she couldn't prove anything. She couldn't see anything, and that, I knew, was driving her mad. "I'll be watching you, Mr. Bennett," she said, her voice a low growl. "I'll be listening, and if I find any evidence of unauthorized activity, you'll be hearing from the HOA." "I look forward to it, Agnes," I said with a smile. "Always a pleasure." She turned and stomped off, her sensible shoes clicking angrily on the pavement, leaving me to chuckle and shake my head. The game was on, and I, Robert Bennett, was winning. The emergency HOA meeting, Part 2, the Secret Stash Showdown, was, predictably, a circus. Agnes, looking like she'd subsisted solely on outrage and anxiety for the past few weeks, presented her case with the fervor of a prosecutor trying a capital murder case. The HOA realized they couldn't enter the garage. "Mr. Bennett," she declared, her voice shaking with emotion, "is clearly up to something in his garage. I don't know what, but it's suspicious. It's unneighborly. It's potentially illegal." She went on to describe the unusual activity she'd observed. The people coming and going, the muffled sounds, the general air of secrecy that surrounded my garage. She even suggested that I might be running an illegal business, hosting wild parties, or, and this was my favorite, engaging in activities detrimental to the moral fabric of Harmony Glen. "I demand," she concluded, slamming her fist on the table, "that the HOA take immediate action. We must investigate Mr. Bennett's garage. We must uncover his secret. We must restore order to Harmony Glen." Then it was my turn. "Miss Primley," I began, addressing the board with a calm, reasonable demeanor that was, of course, completely fake, "seems to be under the impression that I'm engaged in some kind of nefarious activity in my garage. I assure you, I am not." I then proceeded to invite the HOA board to inspect my garage, anytime, any day. I even offered to leave the garage door open for a full 24 hours so they could see for themselves that there was nothing suspicious going on. "I'm simply using my garage for its intended purpose, members of the board," I added. "For storage, for hobbies, for personal projects. I have a right to privacy, and the HOA has absolutely no grounds for suspicion." I then presented evidence of my compliance with all noise ordinances and other general rules. I even brought in some of my club members, my friends and neighbors, all sworn to secrecy, of course, to testify about the harmless nature of our gatherings. "We just get together, sometimes," one neighbor, Mrs. Gable, said, with a perfectly innocent expression, "to discuss books and share recipes and, socialize." The other board members were, to put it mildly, divided. Some were clearly still loyal to Agnes, but their support was waning. Others looked confused, overwhelmed by the sheer absurdity of the situation. And a few, I suspected, were secretly wanting an invitation to the garage mahal. Then, a man from the back of the room stood up. He was a lawyer, a resident of Harmony Glen I'd spoken to briefly about my situation. "Miss Primley," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I must remind you that the HOA has very limited authority here. Mr. Bennett has a right to privacy. He has a right to use his garage as he sees fit, as long as he's not violating any laws or specific HOA regulations. And frankly," he added, with a slight smile, "unless you have concrete evidence of wrongdoing, I strongly advise against any further action. You could be opening yourselves up to a lawsuit." That was the final blow. The board, facing a potential legal battle, a public relations nightmare, and the growing realization that Agnes had completely lost it, voted to take no action. The meeting ended in chaos, with Agnes screaming about the decline of Western civilization and the rise of the garage-dwelling degenerates, and me, Robert Bennett, the Speakeasy proprietor, walking out with a smug, but well-deserved, I thought, smile on my face. But Agnes, like a particularly persistent and prohibition-minded mosquito, wasn't about to give up. What followed was a period of escalating absurdity that I can only describe as the Speakeasy War. Agnes, obsessed with exposing and shutting down my secret, which by now was the worst-kept secret in Harmony Glen, tried every tactic she could think of. She staked out my house, hiding behind bushes and trees, trying to catch me in the act of, whatever she thought I was doing. She hired a private investigator, a guy who looked suspiciously like her nephew, wearing a fedora and a trench coat that was clearly too big for him, to follow me and my friends, hoping to gather evidence of something. She even, I suspect, attempted to break into my garage. I found a few, easily removed, Keep Harmony Glen Harmonious stickers plastered on my garage door. And one morning I woke up to find the lock, mysteriously, jammed. Apparently she was hoping to, lock me out of my own garage, Her logic was, as always, questionable. Of course, I had security cameras everywhere, capturing her every move. And I, of course, responded in kind. Not with vandalism, oh no, I was above that. I responded with more speakeasy. I added more elaborate disguises and secret passwords for entry to the garage mahal. One week, it was the flamingo flies at midnight. The next, it was beige is the color of defeat. I even started requiring guests to wear 1,920 S-style attire. Flapper dresses, fedoras, pinstripe suits, the works. I hosted themed nights, roaring 20s parties, complete with jazz music, cocktails, non-alcoholic, of course, wink wink, and Charleston lessons. Prohibition party, where we all dressed up as gangsters and flappers and pretended to drink illegal beverages. Again, just juice and soda, wink wink. I even had an HOA haters ball, where we all dressed up as our favorite HOA villains. Agnes was, predictably, the most popular costume choice. I created a Speakeasy website and social media presence, with no identifying information, of course, showcasing pictures of the interior, announcing upcoming events, and generally taunting the HOA. It became a minor internet sensation, attracting followers from all over the world who cheered me on and offered suggestions for new themes and disguises. And because why not, I started a rumor about a hidden treasure buried in my garage. A rumor that, of course, reached Agnes's ears and sent her on a frantic late-night digging expedition, which I naturally captured on camera and shared with my fellow Speakeasy members. It was a glorious, ridiculous, utterly over-the-top spectacle. And with each passing day, with each new event, with each new act of defiance, I could feel Agnes's frustration growing, her power waning, her sanity slipping. The Garage Mahal had become more than just a hidden bar. It was a symbol of resistance, a testament to the power of creative and slightly unhinged rebellion. And I, Robert Bennett, the accidental Speakeasy owner, was winning.